everyone! If you didn't already know, Elon Musk has been under fire recently for animal cruelty allegations. Here's a synopsis from an article in the New York Post. Musk's company Neuralink is facing a legal challenge from an animal rights group that has accused the company of subjecting monkeys to extreme suffering during years of gruesome experiments. Neuralink's brain chips, which Musk claims will one day make humans hyper-intelligent and let paralyzed people walk again, were implanted in monkeys' brains during a series of tests at the University of California, Davis from 2017 to 2020, according to a complaint from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine filed with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. In one example, a monkey was allegedly found missing some of its fingers and toes, possibly from self-mutilation or some other unspecified trauma. The monkey was later killed during a terminal procedure, the group said. In another case, a monkey had holes drilled in its skull and electrodes implanted into its brain, then allegedly developed a bloody skin infection and had to be euthanized, according to the complaint. In a third instance, a female macaque monkey had electrodes implanted into its brain, then was overcome with vomiting, retching, and gasping. Days later, researchers wrote that the animal appeared to collapse from exhaustion/fatigue and was subsequently euthanized. An autopsy then showed the monkey had suffered from a brain hemorrhage, according to the report. The experiments involved 23 monkeys in all. At least 15 of them died or were euthanized by 2020, according to the group, which based the report on records released through California's open records law. Pretty much every single monkey that had implants put in their head suffered from debilitating health effects, Jeremy Beckham, PCRM's research advocacy director, told the Post. They were frankly maiming and killing the animals. This has sparked a discussion about the ethics of animal testing. I figured I'd jump in and share my stance on this topic. What's interesting is that a few years ago, Neuralink successfully implanted a microchip in a pig's brain, and this garnered mostly positive media coverage. But now that the story involves monkeys, the news coverage seems mostly negative. To illustrate this stark difference, here are some of the headlines from 2020. Elon Musk's Neuralink puts computer chips in pigs' brains in bid to cure diseases. Implant could solve ailments such as memory loss, hearing loss, depression, and insomnia, Musk said. Neuralink put a chip in Gertrude the pig's brain. It might be useful one day. Neuralink. Elon Musk unveils pig with a chip in its brain. Elon Musk's pig brain implant is still a long way from solving paralysis. His startup Neuralink is not the first to develop a wireless brain implant, but the considerable resources behind the effort could help commercialize the technology faster. And here are some of the headlines from this week. Elon Musk's brain chip company Neuralink faces animal abuse claims. An animal welfare group alleges that monkey test subjects endured crude surgeries and extreme suffering. Why Elon Musk is facing claims of animal cruelty over mind-reading chips. Billionaire's technology firm forced to deny cruel treatment of macaque monkeys. Elon Musk's Neuralink confirms monkeys died in project, denies animal cruelty claims. Elon Musk's Neuralink defends monkey tests after maiming and killing allegations. Based on the media coverage, it seems that the general consensus is experimenting on pigs, good. Experimenting on monkeys, bad. The headlines regarding pigs highlight scientific advancement and technological potential, whereas the headlines regarding monkeys highlight cruelty, abuse, and suffering. Even though both scenarios involve scientific discovery and animal cruelty. The reason for this difference in coverage is speciesism. We've created arbitrary categories for animals, and since pigs are classified as food, our brains register them as commodities. Therefore, we can experiment on them without guilt. Monkeys, on the other hand, are generally classified as animals worth protecting, partly because we tend to assign greater value to animals more similar to us. We sympathize more with monkeys because they're primates, like us, so our brains register them as individuals. Some people view all non-human animal experimentation as justifiable if it's deemed necessary for scientific advancement. Others have moral qualms about testing on primates or dogs, but view experimentation on lower status animals like rats and mice as justifiable if it's deemed necessary. But here's the thing. The more similar the animal is to us, the more reliable the results. Rat studies don't produce very reliable results. The most reliable results come from human trials. The second most reliable results are from primate studies. If animals are similar enough to us to glean useful information from experimenting on them, shouldn't that give us pause? If their bodies and brains are so similar in structure, what makes us think their experience of suffering is significantly different? To make the argument that their suffering is significantly lesser than ours, you would have to demonstrate significant differences in brain structure. In which case, why are we performing experiments that we know won't yield very useful results? And if human studies prove to be most reliable, couldn't you argue that experimentation on humans is a necessary evil? Don't worry guys, we won't select people at random. We'll breed them specifically for this purpose, like in the House of the Scorpion. I understand that exploiting animals for the purpose of medical advancement seems necessary when compared to exploiting animals for something as frivolous as taste pleasure. But necessary is somewhat subjective. For example, I'm watching this show right now about these Russian spies who live undercover in America. The operations they're assigned often involve murder, but they justify it because it's for the greater good. If an innocent person happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, it's necessary that they kill them, because obviously a living witness is a threat to them. Sure, it may be necessary to protect themselves from getting caught, but is it morally justified? They may have a noble goal of fighting American imperialism, but the ends don't justify the means. The purpose of animal testing may be to improve and save lives, but it involves worsening and destroying lives. What is the relevant difference between humans and other primates, pigs, beagles, rabbits, or rats that makes it justifiable to perform these cruel experiments on them, but not on humans? What trait do we possess and they lack that makes it okay? I understand that we wouldn't be where we are today with regard to modern medicine had we never tested on animals. I'm not denying that animal studies have given us scientific insight. But think of all the scientific breakthroughs we could have if we were to experiment on non-consenting humans. I'm all for scientific advancement, but not at the expense of non-consenting sentient beings. Animal testing should be off the table, just as experimenting on non-consenting humans should be off the table. As a society, we put so much emphasis on finding cures for diseases, and very little emphasis on prevention. Many of the problems we're trying to solve with technology are caused by our own behavior, which is why I respect the work that PCRM is doing to promote preventative medicine and alternatives to animal research. Of course, some animal research is done to find cures for rare genetic conditions, or in this particular case, to help paralyzed people regain mobility. But a lot of animal research is done to find cures for diseases that are largely caused by our consumption of animal products. Oh, it's cold in here! To quote David Coates, "Isn't man an amazing animal? He kills wildlife by the millions in order to protect his domestic animals and their feed. He then kills domestic animals by the billions and eats them. This in turn kills man by the million, because eating all those animals leads to degenerative and fatal health conditions like heart disease, kidney disease, and cancer. So then man tortures and kills millions more animals to look for cures for these diseases. Elsewhere, millions of other human beings are being killed by hunger and malnutrition because food they could eat is being used to fatten domestic animals. Meanwhile, some people are dying of sad laughter at the absurdity of man, who kills so easily and so violently, and once a year sends out a card praying for peace on Earth. Here we are, celebrating the first man to survive a pig-to-human heart transplant, who otherwise would have died from heart disease, very likely caused by eating a ton of bacon and hot dogs over the course of his life. How many more pigs' lives will he take now that he has a pig's heart keeping him alive? I'm just so disturbed that left-leaning news outlets like TYT are gushing about this story.
Modern medicine has reached a new milestone, a very exciting milestone. To save a man's life, doctors at the University of Maryland actually replaced his failing heart with a pig's heart. And days later, the guy is still alive. It's working.
God bless science. Science again for the win. Because guys, obviously, if they can perfect this, then those dozen people don't die every single day. We save thousands and thousands of lives, and people extend their lives for potentially decades on end. And look, usually in these type of stories, some fundamentalist religious folks object, oh, that's not what God intended. I don't give a damn what you think some other entity intended. But if I'm gonna die tomorrow, even if God intended it, I'm gonna disagree, okay? I'll go with science and I'll try to save my life, and we can argue about it later when I'm still alive.
It's no doubt an incredible feat of human achievement, but it's also incredibly sick and twisted if you think about it. Jank paints the opposition as irrational religious fanatics, ignoring the glaring secular basis for opposing something like this. Anyway, back to Neuralink. In their response to the controversy, they said, currently all novel medical devices and treatments must be tested in animals before they can be ethically trialed in humans. In other words, all novel medical devices and treatment must be unethically tested on non-human animals before they can be ethically trialed in humans. And we shouldn't be blamed because everyone else is doing it. It may be true that they've always abided by federal animal welfare guidelines, but legality does not equal morality. This isn't so much an expose of Neuralink or Elon Musk, though. It's an expose of the cruelty of animal experimentation in general. It's a systemic problem. As they noted, these accusations come from people who oppose any use of animals in research. PCRM is not hiding this fact, but they're smart and they know that in order to generate publicity, you have to pick a target. Lastly, I want to talk about what opposing animal testing looks like for vegans. Of course, it means we should boycott products tested on animals as far as possible and practicable. But practicable is somewhat open to interpretation. Is it practical to boycott personal hygiene or cleaning products that were tested on animals? I would say yes, for many of us. It's not required by law that these products be tested on animals, so there are cruelty-free options. But sometimes these options are significantly more expensive and thus inaccessible to the poor. Is it practical to boycott cosmetics that were tested on animals? Yes. I think we can all agree that makeup is not a necessity. While it may be required to look professional in some settings, there are affordable, cruelty-free options. Is it practical to boycott medication? I would say no, and the most prominent animal rights organizations advise people not to do this. I am vaccinated, despite the fact that vaccines must be tested on animals before approved by the FDA. I have purchased acne products that don't have the vegan stamp of approval. Acne is a medical condition, even though it's not life-threatening. None of the medications I take are life or death, though. I take ibuprofen when I'm on my period. I don't need to. I take anti-anxiety medication occasionally, knowing I won't die from an anxiety attack. But there are degrees of necessity. While certain medications or household products may not be basic needs, I think you could reasonably classify them as secondary or tertiary needs. Whereas cow's milk in your coffee or whatever is not a need by any stretch of the imagination. There are also degrees of responsibility. When you purchase meat, dairy, or eggs, or go to the zoo, you're fueling the demand for more animal exploitation. Exploitation is inherent in these things. Therefore, you have a greater moral responsibility to avoid them. But when it comes to medication and other necessary household products, this isn't exactly the case. My prescription acne cream isn't continuously being tested on animals. Me buying this product now isn't creating a demand for more bunnies to be blinded. We need legislative change to address this issue. Expecting people to boycott medication because animal testing was required by law is unreasonable in my opinion. Expecting people on a tight budget to exclusively buy cruelty-free household products is impractical. You may disapprove of some of the exceptions I'm willing to make because your interpretation of practical differs from mine. You may categorize acne cream as cosmetic rather than medical. But if you feel this way, have you ever dealt with severe or moderate acne? If you have and you're able to just accept it, you're a saint. Congratulations. Personally, I've struggled to just accept it. Would I kill a bunny to have clear skin? No. But a product exists that works for me, and like I said, me buying this product is not fueling the demand for more bunnies to be mutilated. And if you think painkillers or anti-anxiety meds are justifiable, but using acne cream is not, why is the physical pain from period cramps or discomfort from anxiety more valid than the emotional pain caused by acne? In conclusion, most of the products in my house are cruelty-free and vegan, but I'm not a saint. I am opposed to animal testing in the sense that I would vote for legislation to ban it, knowing that one day I could suffer or die from a medical condition that could have been cured had we tortured a bunch of monkeys. I accept that risk to end all of the horrific experimentation being done on innocent animals. If I became paralyzed, I wouldn't want companies like Neuralink to subject monkeys to cruel experiments on my behalf. But if the technology already exists and doesn't involve more cruelty to animals, then I wouldn't turn it down. And one final point. I understand that we're not going to convince people that animal testing is wrong when they think eating animals is fine. The vast majority of suffering we inflict on animals takes place in factory farms and slaughterhouses, so it makes sense to focus on the plight of farm animals. That being said, if the goal is to dismantle speciesism, I think it's important to shed light on all of it. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. What do you think of all of this? All right, peace out.
Yo, how when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me no eat no fish, no meat now. How when me eat them, I wonder when me yam. When me tell them say that I'm a vegan man. How when me eat them, I wonder when me eat.